Hello. Right, I'm just checking myself on Facebook. Hello, everybody. Let me just get your comments. Hi, everyone. I am indeed having problems, but I think I'm here now. I think I'm here. Am I on Facebook? Let me just find myself. Just check that we have picture. And do we have sound? Hi, Marion. Hi, Mum. Oh, there we are. Yes, we have picture on Facebook. Perfect. Well done. Do we have sound? That's what I need to know. Oh, good. You can hear me? Oh, hi, Helen. Hi, Connie. Loud and clear. Perfect. No movement, Mum, possibly because I wasn't moving. I was sitting very still for a second, just checking the camera. Hi, Cheryl. Hi, Valerie. Hi, Marion. Perfect. Hi, Beverly. Hi, Chris. Hi, Marjorie. How are you? Okay. Hi, Kathy. Hi, Wendy. Hi, Debbie. Apologies for that. Apologies for the delay. All my internet and everything was working, but for some reason I wasn't going online and I couldn't work out why. So we have got bad weather over here, as you say. As I put on Facebook, I am in Ireland and the storm, I think, hits us first before it gets to anyone in the UK. So, yes, causing havoc this morning. I thought we'd go over this. I'm fed up with the rain now. Anyway, let's get going, shall we? We don't want to waste any more time. Thanks for waiting for me, everyone. It's nice to have you all here on a Tuesday afternoon. Hope you're all tucked up and warm. And I think inside in a craft room or in front of the telly is the best place to be. Okay, so let's get going. I'm going to do something a little bit different for you today. And I'm hoping with my lives over the next couple of weeks, if not sort of for the months going forward, to actually show you a few different techniques, something for you to have a little play at, perhaps something a little bit more challenging. But it's all in mind with Lisa's products coming up, obviously, particularly the tacky mat. And I'm sure we're all waiting for this coming up, and this is a technique that is definitely going to be something that you can use with a tacky mat, but you don't need to have it. I don't have one yet, so I can't wait for it to come out. So obviously I'm going to be showing you this without the tacky mat, but obviously if you bear this in mind and rewatch it in a couple of weeks' time, when we do have this after Lisa's birthday shows on Create and Craft, then maybe it's something that you can use or revisit on YouTube and rewatch again. So also what I wanted to do was to show you how to combine two lots of stencil designs that weren't actually designed to go together. They weren't not designed to go together, but then obviously they're not the one product. You noticed we've got our lovely little feathered friend here, the red robin, sitting in front of our tulips. Now, if you remember when this little red robin came out, he came out for Christmas and he was sitting on a lovely little poinsettia spray. But he's too good to just come out at Christmas, isn't he? And I know that we can use this stencil at any time. So we don't have to colour this as a poinsettia. We can colour this as different colours and make it look appropriate for all year round. But I thought, why not just try something a little bit different? So I've sat my little friend in front of the tulips, and I've used the tulips mainly because I hadn't used them before. I noticed when I was flipping through everything that these weren't open, so I thought this is a perfect time, kill birds with one stone, not close little robin's ears here, because it's always nice, and it's something we challenge you to do quite often, is go back through your stash We know that you collect Lisa's items, and we know that you get bundles of things, and it's so easy for some things just to get pushed down to the bottom of the pile and not opened because other things take over and they're your favourites and you forget a little bit. So this is where I was with the tulips. I thought I'd use them, but I hadn't. So I opened them up and decided to use them with the robin. Now, also what I have achieved with this is all just a single sheet of cardstock. I didn't need to 3D the sentiment. I have, if I can just show you that on the camera there. I have 3D this, but this could equally just lay flat and just been used with glue to stick this on not 3D foam. But being in Ireland and posting to the UK the majority of the time, I'm very conscious of postage costs, particularly when something is two-dimensional. The price of it goes up because it then becomes a small package, because when it's dimensional you need to pad it out so it's protected. So it really does pay for us, in particular sending to the UK, to have as slimmer cards as possible. So to have just sort of single sheet stencils really works. Plus, when we go to the post office, if it's anything larger than what would fit through the letterbox thing, and it's sort of parcel size, they get hold of it and they bend and they pull and they they squash it all about, and then they ask me what's inside, and I think, well, that's a card that I've just spent 3 or 4 hours making and you're pushing and pulling it about. Anyway, enough of that. So this is a single sheet. So I'll show you how to combine these two stencils. Now, obviously, if this is a little bit more than what you're comfortable with doing, I will show you afterwards how you can then do this with the die cut, so you can still achieve this look, and perhaps even more slightly 3D'd as well. So I'll just run through quickly what it is I'm using. I do have a little slide here. I'll put that up. I'll just run through it quickly because I've wasted a bit too much time just coming to you. So I'll just run through it. We have the nested scallop. So this is just for the base cardstock that I'm working on. I've created a background. So for that I've used the inks as well as the Tulip doily stencil and the background stamps. Again, we have everything listed on the side here. And then the 2 sets of stencils that I've combined. Now, the stencils at the moment are in stock, but the dies are not. But I know many of you would have bought these as pairs and have the dies at home. So these are the 2 stencil sets that I've combined together. So we have the layering stencils for the tulips and the layering stencils for the red robin. Now, obviously, they do come with embossing folders and their associated dies for the tulips and also the red robin. Now, because I'm combining the 2 pieces into like a flat project here, obviously none of this is embossed. But again, the images are so beautiful that I don't always think that you need to do that. So let's get stenciling. Where did I put my piece of cardstock? Here we are. So as I say, I've used the stitch rectangles, just to the largest size, just to work on for my project for a 5x7 card, which is this one here. The colours for this project I'm using are here, and if I just do this, oh, hang on a minute, no. Oh, there we are. That's the colours that I'm using for the project. So I'm just going to take these off very quickly. Now, we're all quite familiar with our ink colours. But I know that lots of you do have lots of ink colours. If you don't have Lisa's colours, obviously all of these techniques can be used with any ink pads that you already have in your stash. So don't. But if you are new to Lisa and you have these ink colours, this is a really nice way to start using them. So I'm going to create a background. So we've got painted eggshell in the background here, which is this lovely grey blue, and it's sort of quite a colour you can mould to how you want it to look, depending on what you pair it with. So initially I'm just going to create just a really gentle background by scraping or pulling the ink pad over the cardstock, just like so. This is a really nice way because it catches around the outside even more, so we have like a faux matte and layer look. Now, before I do anything else, what I want to do, where have I put them? There they are. I also want to introduce you to Lisa's masking tape. Now, as I say, I know the dies aren't in stock at the moment, but many of you will have them. But to create this background, obviously we need to layer these images, and we don't want the back of the tulip behind the robin's head here to show through. So I've done a little bit of masking. Now, with the dies for these products, it's so easy to take them out and die cut this masking tape. So you can just cut off a piece to size that fits your die. It die cuts beautifully, so you've got absolutely no issues with that. You want to die cut on the top here. So when you take this out of the packet, this is how it will be. And if your roll curls downwards, then that is the top. And that will be the sticky side, so that just to let you know. So what you want to do is die cut a set of tulips and die cut your robin. Now this is what we're going to use to compose the piece before we do anything else on our project. Now this is a masking tape that I'm quite confident in using. When Lisa bought this out, she said sort of straight away, when you put this down, don't really push it and really burnish it onto the paper unless you don't want it to move. If you're just creating a sticker and you want to just put that onto your cardstock and not move it anywhere, then obviously really make sure it's down. But we are just composing a piece here, and these will eventually be removed. So as you can see, I'm just taking the backing off the tulips here. I'm going to create and just work out where I want my tulips to be stenciled on this project. So they are going to be overhanging off the page because I think that gives us a really nice natural look. So I'm going to just line this down, line this up to the bottom of the piece, and I'm just really gently just going to lay that down just so as it sticks. You see, that's enough. And we have this section overhanging. Don't worry about that, that can just sit. No problem. Now, with the robin, we obviously don't want the poinsettia and all of this detail underneath. So I'll show you what we need to do. I'm going to take the embossing folder and I'm going to line up this masking tape in the embossing folder. Now, you could emboss it if you want, but there really is no need because all we want is just to get an idea of where we need to cut this masking tape now. So I'm just lining up my masking tape in there. Okay, making sure that's lined up. I'm just going to hold this in the folder. Now, because I'll just show you, the paper is curling. So make sure you keep contact with your die cut and your folder at all times. So I'm holding this here, I'm closing the folder. Then I'm making contact and holding with the head through the folder, through all the layers before I take that hand away. And that just makes sure that the image doesn't slip in the folder. Now what I'm going to do, something just a little bit different. Now you could use a brayer, you could use a stamping block. As I say, if you do really struggle, then you can just run it through the embossing machine, but you really don't need to. All I'm doing is just putting a little bit of pressure on there. So you can get a stamping block if that'll make it a little bit easier, and just push that down. And I'll show you for why in a second. Now I'm just going to make sure that I hold that and just check I have the detail. Yeah, I'm just going to push that down and just I'm concentrating on where the robin is. Now I'm going to take that out. Now that detail, that pressure that I've just put through the embossing folder there is just enough just to catch a little bit of detail. Can you just see the bottom of the robin there? Okay. What that will now enable me to do is to cut that robin away from the rest of the foliage. The other way you could do this, if you find that just a little bit too tricky, is to get your stencils out and just find the stencils that detail the robin and just stencil onto that masking paper, and then you'll be able to cut the robin out away from the poinsettia, because we don't want that as part of the design, not in this case anyway. So we have our robin, our masked robin, and we now know where we can sit that on our project like that. Okay, so I can remove him from the back end so we can make a nice little sticker. Keep the back ends, they'll come in useful in a little bit. So we can sit that there in front of our tulips. Again, don't push him down too much. So now we can continue with the background. So painted eggshell. So I'm going to get just a stencil brush and going to pick up some painted eggshell. And what I'm going to do is create a shadow just all around the outside of our masking tape. Now don't press too hard, because again that is going to add pressure to our masking paper, make it just a little bit trickier to remove, but we just want a gentle shadow going around the outside of these die cuts, and that just gives us this shadow around the outside that you can see here. So we add that in again really gently, really gently. Just keep adding layers. If you want it darker, just keep doing it gently, but add more layers. So I'm not going to go too mad. That is enough for me, I think. Now we want to add a little bit more detail in the background. So this is when I come in with my tulip doily. Again, this was a set of 4. And just we've got a choice of any backgrounds, whatever you have in the stash. You don't necessarily need to go this, but it was just a nice theme, and it just gave me something to sort of latch onto to choose, because I can be notoriously indecisive. But the tulip doily with the tulips, it sort of figures really, this, doesn't it? So I'm going to use a small stencil brush, the coral beach, and just really lightly stencil through just one corner of this stencil. And this is just going to create just some detail in the background. You could, if you wanted, use a stencil brush, which I think I might take on just to, I'm aware that we did waste a bit of time, so I'm going to speed up a little bit so we can get through this and not keep you too long. So just add a light layer of the coral through this. The coral and the painted eggshell work so nicely together. So we can start seeing some detail coming into the background there. If I can just lift that for you. And it's not, well, this is entirely up to you actually. This is where you're creating backgrounds. It's to suit your eye and the way that you like to do things. But I like to create it so it's just subtle in the background. So if it wasn't there, it'd look plain. So it just gives us, you know, just a nice bit of detail in the back. So we can see that that's sitting there. Now if you want to add a little bit more shading around the edge of this, around here, but you don't want to do that with a brush, or you're not entirely comfortable doing that with a brush, what you can do is take your stamps. I'm going to go for this distressed sort of corner look here, because this is such a useful stamp. Now my stamps are really discoloured, and that shows just how much I use them. But what I did do before I sat down and done this, I took them all to the sink and just gave them a wash. And what it's done is just reignited that tackiness on the back, because I'm not going to use a stamping block with this. I'm just going to keep this on my fingers, and that just gives me a much more natural feel to my stamping. So I'm going to keep it on my fingers, and you can see how tacky it is now. You'll know when they need washing because that tackiness will go. So just a little bit of warm water and a tiny bit of washing up liquid, and that will just reignite. So I'm going to use the painted eggshell and just stamp into the corner and just keep stamping so you get lots of the different generations of ink, and it ends up going lighter. But what this is a really nice way to do is add shading to that corner that isn't solid, that you achieved with a brush. It's like a really graduated shading, speckly shading, as it were, and it's a really nice way to add detail, but in a subtle way. So you can see how I've rounded those corners off with that stamp. I'm going to add some detail. It's going to be subtle detail again with the paint splat stamp, and again on my fingers into the coral beach. Now this is going to be subtle again, but I'm just going to stamp with my fingers, with the stamp on my fingers into the area there. And the last detail, I couldn't help myself, I'm going to use the script stamp. Again on my fingers, like that, with the painted eggshell, and just turn it on the side and just do a couple of areas so we have a little bit of script just sitting there, and that creates us a really nice layered subtle background, which is really pretty. And those two colours work really nicely together. If you haven't tried them and you have them, put the coral, it's coral beach and painted eggshell together. Really nice, soft combination. Right, so now I'm happy with that. I'm happy with the background. So now what we can do is remove our masks. Now take a little bit of time doing this and just gently make sure that you peel it back as close to the paper as you can, because what that does, it just limits. If it's stuck down a little bit too much, it's the paper tearing. So that's the mask tearing there, which is absolutely fine. So make sure that catches. So what I'm going to do is just gently peel that away, and actually both masks will come away together. And this is the only masking tape really that I've got the confidence to do this on air in front of you, because I've tried it other times before and it's just ripped my projects, and I thought there's no way that I can demonstrate this for you if demasking tape doesn't work. So I can remove that off, and now we have a nice clean area to stencil onto. Now just imagine if that was just one stencil. You could just almost leave that like that, couldn't you? I mean, it doesn't look anything at the moment because we've got the two stencils together, but that would just look stunning, wouldn't it? Okay, so now we come on to some stenciling. So I'll bring in my ULTI-mate. Now we are going to stencil the robin first because we want to see him sitting out front as we do here. So I shall bring in my robin stencils. Now leave that sitting. I'm going to take away those colours. I shall put them back on at the end if you want to take a note of that. Oh, actually, I've got my light on, so that reflection isn't doing anyone any good at all, is it? There we are. So now you can see that. Okay. Now, with our stenciling here, we only want to stencil the robin. And of course, this set comes with a poinsettia. So there's going to be an awful lot of these stencils that we are not going to use. So this is a set of 7 stencils. We won't be using, let me just move this so I can show you. We won't be using 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. So the first stencil that starts detailing the robin is stencil number 5. So we don't need those. Now we need to make sure that we line these up. Now the easiest way to do this I found, and I'm missing a stencil, excuse me. Oh, there he is. There we are, we only had half a robin. Okay. Now the easiest way to do this is to line it up with stencil number 8. So this is where we can really make sure that we get this positioned properly. So we know where our robin is sitting on our project. So we line up this stencil. It's quite straightforward, a lot more straightforward than you would imagine. So line it up with the beak, make sure you're happy with the way that that's sitting. Like so. Now you'll see that the project is slightly wonky to the stencil. Just see if that sits, and the way that I've done this sits fine on my ULTI-mate here. So maybe now you can see the advantage when this tacky mat comes into play. But I do have the magnetic mat, or if you're using the ULTI-mate one, this will be magnetic anyway. So what you can do, use your magnets and you can keep your project in place that way. Okay, so we can remove stencil 8. We'll come on to that a little bit later. And now we can start stenciling our robin. So our first piece is his redbreast. So I'm starting actually with straw hat, so slightly different colours, but this is a really lovely combination for the robin. So we go in with straw hat. It's a really nice sort of buff colour. Now this is going to be subtle again. It's just the nature of the way I craft, unfortunately, but hopefully you'll see it all come together when I pull the stencils away. So I should come in with the straw hat. Then before I remove the stencil, just with a little bit of the pina colada, and I'm just going to use what is on the brush because I have used this a lot already this morning. And I'm just going to swipe down and just put a little bit of yellow, mainly on the top part of this section, and swipe down just to change that a little bit. And for me, that just gives the front of the robin, or this could be like a generic bird beak, chiff chaffrey, warbler, whatever. So it sort of changes the colour up a little bit. And that just gives that a really nice colour. You can see that sitting there. So now we come in with stencil 6. So we have the wing and his eye. Now for this, I used almond frosting. So I come in with the almond frosting. I go quite heavy at the top of the wing and bring that down the way. I'm just going to change my brush for the bigger one actually. Okay. Now we have the base of the tail here and the legs also. Now before I move this stencil, I'm going to come back in with the painted eggshell. And I'm going to do the eye and the beak that's sitting there. And then also, I'm just going to bring that down to the top of the wing. And what that does, it just gives that browny grey shade, and it just changes that slightly. And also adds shading. It's a painted eggshell shades almond frosting really well. Again, that's maybe something, if you are taking notes, that would be one just for you to note down and try. I mean, look at the colour of that. I think that's just perfect. So stencil number 7, there's nothing for our little robin friend there. So we move on. Then stencil number 8, which will finish our robin off perfectly, or our little bird. So again, we do exactly the same. We come in with almond frosting, the top of his head. Go quite heavy on there, I think. Okay. And then I'm going to bring the almond frosting from the tail upwards. We do have our little poinsettia here. Now remember that piece that I said just to keep when we removed the mask. Just put that over this part of the stencil that you don't want to stencil, okay? Because then that will mean that you're not going to get any extra colour in places that you don't want. So we can then come back in with our almond frosting and just add the detail like this. Now I'm not going to put too much on to the front of him there. I'm just basically adding colour all the way around the outside because I think that just gives a really nice detail. And again, before I move the stencil, come in with the painted eggshell, add some shading into the top of his head and the back of his neck or into his nape. And then don't forget his beak and into the wings as well. Again, that detail in the wings is perfect with painted eggshell. I'll make sure that we've got that shading on the top of his head there and into the nape actually. We'll just do a little bit more. There we are. So we can take that away and we have our bird sitting there. Just how pretty is he? Now just before I'll just move that up so you can see that. Gorgeous colouring. Gorgeous colouring. And you can see now how he just sits nicely amongst the detail that we've already created. So that's us finished with the robin. Now we can start thinking about stenciling our tulips. So just find my tulip stencils. Now this time round we will use all of our tulip stencils. We don't need to discard any of them because they are what they are. Can you see that? Okay, let me just come back onto your comments there. Are we struggling? Oh, it looks like we're struggling with we are struggling with numbers, are we? Perhaps. Okay, well I shall carry on going. So hopefully you'll be able to re-watch this and this will be sitting on YouTube for you. Okay, so we're coming on to our tulips now. And again, we just need to realign. So this can now be moved. We've finished with our robin, our little bird. So find the stencil with the most detail on them. So probably be stencil number 3 for the tulips. This will give us a really good indication on how to line up those flowers like so against the masked area we've already created. So line that up like so. Now obviously this isn't now going to sit onto our peg system, so I'm going to turn around my ULTI-mate. I'm still keeping hold of this project and I'm just going to use this corner up against our pegs as well. This will be how I line up my stencil, so I'll have the confidence that those stencils will be placed in exactly the correct position each time. You can secure your project down with your magnets or the tacky mat as and when it's coming round. So we know that our project isn't going anywhere either. My magnets are doing something strange. There we are. Okay, so make sure you put your stencil back into position in the set. And then we can come in with stencil number 1. Now, what we do need to bear in mind is that we can see our little robin friends sitting underneath, can't we? So when we stencil our tulips, we just need to bear that in mind. If you want, you can replace your robin mask over the robin, but I would just urge you just to be careful that you don't press that down too much, because you don't want that then to tear when you take it away. But what you can do, there's another piece that we took off, the backing piece, which I said earlier on not to throw away. What we can do, we can just place that underneath on top of our robin and hold that in place. Or what you can do also, if you're not happy doing that, you can just make sure that you just, when you come round to stencil round near the robin, use a smaller brush and just avoid those areas. So I'll show you that. Now I'm just stenciling the tulip leaves here with garden sage. So now some of this detailing will of course go off the page, that's fine. So here I'm just conscious that we're coming up to the robin And I'm just using my brush, even with a larger stubby brush actually, you can still get quite a lot of detail, control over that. So you can stencil right up to the robin, but not actually go over the edge to him. So if you haven't covered him up at this stage, it really doesn't matter too much. But just bear in mind that some of these leaves will go over the robin and you don't want to stencil them. So I'll just show you that and say all I'm doing is just avoiding where our little bird is underneath. So when I take this away, that you can see our leaves are going around the outside of him. Because the project is perfectly positioned with the magnets there, so that's not going anywhere. I can remove my stencils and replace them without disturbing the positioning too much. I know that as long as I butt the stencils up into this corner, they are going to be perfectly positioned. So with stencil number 2, I'm going to come in a little bit darker because these are the tulip stems. A little bit darker with the garden sage. I've already used it before, so as long as I just come in with this in a look darker with a bit more intensity, then those 2 layers of garden sage are going to look different. Again, just be conscious down this area when you're near a little bird. Again, what you can do is just change the size of your stencil brush just to make sure you've got that control adding the colour. And these stencil brushes are absolutely perfect for that. It gives you so much control. And I can avoid stenciling over him. So when I take that stencil away, you can still see that we have the leaves going around the outside of him. So stencil number 3 is the first stencil that introduces the colour to the flowers. I am actually going to cover the bird's head because one of them is just popping through that flower stencil, and I want to add quite a lot of colour to these flowers initially, so I don't want to. So I'll just cover the little robin there just to make sure I don't accidentally get too enthusiastic with the ink. So with Pina Colada, I can start adding some real wrong colour to the I'm going to do that. Wrong colour to the tulip. So we have one green tulip. Oh dear. Never mind, I'm sure you'll forgive me. So we can add the Pina Colada to the rest of the tulips. So we're going to go in quite heavy with that. We really want them to pack a punch. As you can see, the colours that I've created on there. I'm going to put more yellow at the base of the tulip, so that gives it an element of shading. I can't believe I've done that. What a wally. Anyway, somehow, let's see if we can disguise that. Maybe that can be a bud. What do we think? Do you think I can get away with that? Oh, but it might not look so bad after all. Okay, so make sure that our little mask is covering there. We put on stencil number 4. So again, detailing onto the flowers. Again, I'm going to come in with yellow at this stage. Quite heavy-handed with this because we really want that detail to really show through. Hopefully I can make this a bit, save this flower a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to make sure our yellow comes into our tulips there. Now before I remove this stencil, I'm going to come in with the Coral Beach, and I'm going to get quite a lot on my stencil brush. And what I'm going to do, I'm not going to worry about blending this. I'm just going to swipe up, and if I get brush strokes, all the better. If I don't, I'm just going to go with what I have. So I'm going to pick up an awful lot of ink on my brush and just swipe it up, because you know some tulips actually just have stripes on them, don't they? So that is sort of what I'm trying to achieve. Now, I'm not going to get it on this one here, but I should give it a go. just colour tint that. So when I pull that away, you can see the detailing that we've got on the tulip set. Let me just hold that up to you so you can see, because I think my light might be just washing that out a little bit. So the coral beach layers perfectly over pina colada. And if you think about it, when you're on a beach holiday, sitting there sipping your pina colada, perfect match. So again, then maybe that's just a colour combination that you might want to jot down and have a try. So stencil number 5, we have a little bit more foliage. So again, I'm going to come in with the garden sage. Through the leaves there. They miss actually our little birdie friend at the bottom, which is quite handy. So I'm going to layer those on. And just to add a little bit of point of difference on these flowers, I'm just going to take the pina colada brush that I've been using and just add a little tone of yellow through there. That will just change that tone of the green a little bit and just add to those different layers that we're adding. Now the last stencil for the tulips, stencil number 6. We have the detailing on the flowers. So I'm going to come in with the pina colada again on the details where the flowers are. Quite heavy through there. I'm going to use the garden sage on the leaf. And just continue the theme. I'm going to add a little bit of the coral beach just at the bottom of these details, just so as that follows the theme of the earlier stencil, and on that one as well. Okay, so we can take that away. And that's the detailing that we've finished on our tulips there. So you can see now how we've managed to build up all of those layers with 2 different sets of stencils. So we have the bird that's sitting in front of the tulips there. And that actually doesn't look too bad after all, does it? I would have preferred it to be yellow. And it is just a single layer. And just by adding that little bit of shading around the outside of the mask, just like I did here, that is what will help you add that 3D look to the piece. Now there is a little bit of a white line around the tulips. That's the nature of the die cutting and the matching up of the stencils. But I don't mind that too much. I think with what you're trying to achieve, this is an artist's impression after all, isn't it? So I think that still really works, and it actually gives a slight matte and layer, but I think that works really, really well. Now, obviously, we've got to address sort of the bird has got no feet and is sort of in effect floating. So all that we would do, well, I didn't actually create my mats and layers for that one, did I? So what we would do, I'm just use the back of the card here. It's the back of a 5x7 card. You just put that on, you put your mat and layer on behind that you think fits. And then I've created the sentiment, here we are. And you just add a sentiment bar that sits along the bottom, and that hides all that's missing with our robin. So you wouldn't actually know that there aren't any details there. And I think that's what finishes off the card perfectly. So you put your sentiment bar across there, stamp a sentiment, use a sentiment sticker, and that just finishes off that image perfectly. Now, I do appreciate that's possibly a little bit more advanced, completely and utterly achievable for everybody. It really is. And achievable with other designs as well. You don't have to use the tulips. You can use exactly the same in front of any other of Lisa's floral designs. especially some of the more intricate signs, it would look absolutely stunning. There's one actually, I think it's the Oriental Anemone, which there's a spray that goes along the bottom of a card like this. I was going to use that one, but I've used that quite a lot, so I wanted to use something different. Now, if you think that that is just a little bit too ambitious at this stage, but please give it a go, because I'm really, really sure you can achieve that. What you can do, of course, is use the die cuts. I'm not saying you can't use the die cuts, but sort of being a demonstration, someone who does like stenciling, I just wanted to do something a little bit different. So I'm going to create a square card this time. I've created the background in exactly the same way as I did here, but gone all over the piece. I've done no masking. So you can see the tulip doily in the background. You can see the paint splat stamps and also the text stamps. I've just lined this with a pro marker. So we have faux matte and layering. So black pro marker just all the way on the outside. Matte and layer, and just Lisa's white card. Then I wanted this to coordinate completely with the background that I've created. So I've taken the painted eggshell and I've just used the ink pad and just created my matte and layer. And I just used my ink pad, direct to paper, and just created a border all the way around the outside on all four sides. I'm just going to wipe that away on there. So I've created a border on all four sides. So when we matte and layer this, it looks like you've used a piece of design paper of that colour. But obviously, there's no point wasting the ink and colouring all in the centre, is there? So I'm just going to layer these two together. Oh, the glue's just about working. So that pro marker faux layer is just breaking up the painted eggshell from the two. But that again is just a really, really pretty colour. So that can now sit on our card blank. So again, I'm using a square. It's 15 centimetres square. It's my favourite card size that I use. But again, this is completely adaptable to any card blank size that you may have. So I'm going to matte and layer that onto there. Now, then what I've done, I've stenciled and die cut my tulips in exactly the same colour as I've done here and on the other card that I've moved. What I've done with that one, I'll find it in a second. Yeah, and just die cut them out. You can emboss them, obviously, if you want to, but this now just goes outside of this design paper. I think I might just leave it like that. I like that. I like that look. So I'm going to glue it down as is. I haven't embossed them. I like the look of them as they are, I think, at this stage. So I'm going to attach that down there so it fits on the card completely. And actually, if you think about it, this 15 centimetre square card blank fits these tulips perfectly. Now, even that on its own is stunning. Put one of the brand new sentiments there, or even a die cut sentiment, and that would be perfect. But we do have our robin, and I've stenciled him in the same colours as I did before. I've die cut him out, and obviously you'd get all the extra poinsettia. I've done this on a smaller piece of cardstock because it's a great sort of scrap buster technique as well. But now this gives me the opportunity to die cut the robin out. You can see where you need to go this time. So we can just die cut him out. Now, I did die cut out initially with the actual die, so this is just a little bit of fussy cutting going on. And I'll just cut that round and match up there. So we have the robin coming out. Now, the way that the stencil works, he does have a poinsettia leaf just sitting in front of him that juts into his belly, which will leave you with like a little triangle blank on his tummy. But all you need to do is just get a brush with the same ink that you've used on his belly and just blend it out. And that will eventually go and you won't see it. And obviously, if you're giving this to someone, they're not going to know that that was there in the first place, so they won't be looking for it. So we have our little robin or a little bird. You can sit there on the front, position him where you want in front of the tulips, or whichever die cut you've chosen to use. Again, cut yourself a little band for your sentiment, and that will hide everything that the robin doesn't have, the poor little thing. We don't want to give him a complex, so we'll just trim that to size. And again, this sentiment band, actually, the same one as I used, here's the card, here. It's just a piece of white cardstock, and I've just used the direct paper technique and used garden sage just to colour tint it, so the whole thing is coordinated. And then all I've done, I've chosen to use a sticker, one of Lisa's stickers, which we've had a long time now, and this is one of the foil ones. So this one is silver. I've used a gold one on here, and I can just add that. Oh, got a static on there. I can add that, and you can add some gems or however much embellishment you like. But again, I think the technique is completely achievable whether you use the die cuts or if you want to give the stenciling a go as well. Okay, so Susan, yeah, they do both work, don't they, Susan? I think they both work. I mean, this obviously you can really layer up and make 3D. You can add 3D foam behind the robin or the flowers or the sentiment. You can really go to town on it. But equally, you've got the option to just keep it flat and layered as well. Again, if you emboss one of these, again, that will change the look completely. Or maybe you just emboss the robin. So here's the one that stands out as well. So yeah, there's lots of different options, and say all created with basically white cardstock and ink. So do have a go, do have a play, and try other designs as well, because I'm sure they'd look fabulous too. So I'm really appreciate that you've all stuck with me today. Hi Bonnie, thanks for joining me. It's a really really awful day out there. I'm so glad that the internet has stayed and you've managed to stick through with this. I was quite excited to show you this technique actually. So I hope you give it a go. If you do and you get stuck, just come through, ask us some questions and we can help you through it. And we look forward to seeing what you come up with in the group. Now, I'll be with you again on Thursday. I'm not quite sure what I'll be doing yet. I may use the same products. That may be my thing going forward. Maybe on the week that I do two lives for you, I may use the same products and both times and come up with different projects for you. I don't know. I'll have a think. So take care, everyone. Again, thanks so much for sticking with me. I've really enjoyed doing that for you, and I look forward to seeing you on Thursday. Bye now.